or he was looking, he was thinking, he was planning, he forgot himself, he was going to move it, and then he caught himself. There's two opinions in the Gemara regarding Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha, whether he did the actual sin unintentionally of violating the Shabbat, whether he was just about to sin. So if you look at the Tosfot on Yud Beis Amud Beis on 12b, if you want to look at, we're up to, let's say 12b 3. Rav Natan Omer Kara v'Hiter. Aaron, you have the Tosfot on the right? Okay. Rav Natan Omer Kara v'Hiter. Rav Natan says that he was under the impression that Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha he actually moved the lantern. What's the problem of moving the lantern on Shabbat? Moving a oil lamp on Shabbat, because he moved it because there wasn't proper oil coming to the wick, and by moving it and moving that the oil should come to the wick, that's a violation of making a fire on Shabbat. Making a fire on Shabbat is not only when you go ahead and you make an actual fire on Shabbat. Is when you do, even if you go ahead and move the oil to the wick, which helps it burn more, that's also part of the prohibition of making a fire on Shabbat. According to his understanding, that he actually violated the Shabbat unintentionally, the Tosfos says, Hacha, I'm not going to Makarav Hiter, Hacha b'makot. Here in the Masechus Makot, Gabe Yehuda ben Tabai. Yehuda ben Tabai sheharag Eid Zomim. He killed an Eid Zomim. It's a certain story that somebody was a witness, a false witness. He framed somebody, but in order to kill a framer, both witnesses have to have been framers. If one person framed the guy and not the second, you can't kill the one. You have to only kill if they're both framers. So even though he killed a person who was a framer, but technically he did not have a right. He did not have a right to do that. It was a mistake. He made a mistake in the halacha. And the rabbi of the court, through the court, did capital punishment on somebody. The court killed somebody because this person framed another person. There is a law that if you do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to the person. If two people want to frame somebody and say that someone is obligated death, they say if two witnesses say that a person committed a certain crime, and subsequently these two witnesses were found to be zomimim. Zomim means that let's say they said that it happened in New York on Sunday, but we have two other witnesses say that you weren't in New York on Sunday. You were in Chicago on Sunday, the whole day. So therefore, the Torah says you do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to the defendant. They wanted to kill the defendant, so they get killed. Is that clear, Aaron? No. But there's a technical rule, Mr. Haber. You only can kill the witnesses only at one adam if both become framers. If both are found to be framers, then you can kill both witnesses. But if you found one of them to be a framer, let's say if two witnesses that say on one of the witnesses that one of the witnesses were with us somewhere else during the time that they claimed the testimony happened. So if you're only able to frame one, only able to show that one's a framer, you don't kill that one witness. And the rabbi, through his hand, not that he actually killed him, but through his leadership as the rabbi of the court, they killed this one witness. So we find that a rabbi made a mistake unintentionally. And B'isha Rabbah, also sounds like another story of a rabbi doing a sin. Lo Paruch, the Gemara doesn't ask, we have, the Gemara says, the animal of a tzaddik, Hashem protects that the animal of a tzaddik will not eat something that the animal is not allowed to eat. Because let's say if you didn't take off maaseh, certain types, you can't, let's say you can't feed it, let's say you can't feed it to your animal. Hashem will, there was a story that there was an animal of one of the great tzaddikim, didn't want to eat from the produce. Well, why didn't want to eat from the produce? Because Hashem protected that the animal, the tzaddik, will not eat something that's not allowed to be eaten because maaseh wasn't taken off. And the Gemara says if Hashem protects the tzaddik's animal not to eat something that the animal's not allowed to eat, certainly Hashem will protect who? The tzaddik himself. So why is it that Hashem did not, why we have fine circumstances that God does not protect the tzaddik? You told me that there's a concept that God protects the tzaddik not to eat something that he shouldn't eat, not to do that sin. So why wouldn't God protect the tzaddik that he shouldn't move the oil lantern on Shabbat? Why wouldn't God protect the tzaddik not to kill a witness that was a framer if he's not supposed to kill that framer witnesses because both of them weren't found to be framers, only one. Why did God protect the tzaddik? And also Tosfos is going to point out there was a rabbi that made a mistake and he ate before Havdalah, right? You're not allowed to eat before Havdalah, right? You have to be careful not to eat before Havdalah. You're not allowed to eat, you're not allowed to drink before Havdalah. Technically, you can have water before Havdalah, but I don't know if the custom, if people have that, people drink water before Havdalah or not. You can't have, once it's time for Kiddush, you can't have water. Once, let's say you come up from shul Shabbat morning, you daven, you can't have water before you have, once you prayed, once you finish praying, you can't have water before Kiddush, but you can have water before Havdalah, technically. And the guy went ahead, and Hashem did not protect him, and he ate before Havdalah. Why did Hashem protect him? So Tosfos says a very interesting answer. Omer Rabbeinu Tam. The lo parach b'shum makam. The only time the Gemara will say God will protect the tzaddik, ela gabe achilat isur. Tosfos says, eating something that's forbidden. Not a time that is forbidden, but when the actual food is not kosher, or something not kosher about that item. It's food. The gnai hu l'tzaddik biyoter. It is very not. Why is that he'll have protection for not eating not kosher? Because that's exceedingly derogatory and negative to the tzaddik, to the righteous person. And my rabbi from the Mi Yeshiva, Rabbi, I learned a couple of yeshivot, Rabbi David Kriyat, he explained the following. He explained that, number one, when you eat something, a person eats something not kosher, it's mitamtem deleif. Its effect on the heart, on the Jewish heart, it like clogs the heart. We know about clogging the heart in the medical world, Adam, right? People eat certain types of foods that really clog the heart. But there is a clogging of the Jewish heart, of the spiritual heart. That clogging is the non-kosher food. Not kosher food that becomes part of the Jew clogs the heart. And then therefore, since it actually has such an effect on the heart, and also within his body, if he ate not kosher food, that means within him, within the righteous person, within the tzaddik, he has not kosher inside of him. If you go ahead and you move the candle by mistake, it's not inside of you, it's outside of you. But if you go ahead and you eat something not kosher, then part of you is not kosher, or part of you within you. Therefore, Hashem will protect the righteous person that he won't eat something that's not kosher. But regarding eating something that is kosher at a time that you should not eat it, for instance, before Havdalah, he had kosher food. Rabbi Yirmiyah ate kosher food, but he ate it at the wrong time. or that Hashem will not necessarily protect the tzaddik from eating at the wrong time, something he should not eat. Because it's not that part of him, there's some not kosher food part of him. It's kosher food. It's just at the wrong time. Adam, is that clear? Is that interesting? I think it's very fascinating. That's why that's how Tosfos explains our Gemara here on 12b3 that according to the opinion that Rabbi Yishmael actually moved the oil lantern on Shabbat. Why didn't he have that special divine protection? Because it wasn't something that necessarily God will protect. It's being that it's something that's with it, that's not coming, it's not nothing not kosher going into your body. You're not ingesting anything not kosher. Ingesting things that are not kosher, morning asaf, it becomes part of your DNA, so to speak, if that's the right word. It becomes part of you. God will protect. Why? The Tosfos says because it's more derogatory for a tzaddik. It's derogatory for a tzaddik to make any mistake, to issue a wrong ruling, or to move a lantern on Shabbat unintentionally. It's derogatory for tzaddik. But say it again. He would be according to this explanation, he would be like all tzaddikim. All tzaddikim, there's a basic rule for all righteous people. The basic rule is God will protect. If you're a tzaddik, God will protect you not eating not kosher food unintentionally. It's like an amazing protection you got. Hashem is going to make sure that you're not going to eat. You know what's interesting? There is a story, Mr. Haber. You're reminding me. You're talking about is it unique? From Moshe Feinstein. The story goes. I think it was Rav Moshe Meir Weiss who was in Staten Island yeshiva, who learned to Staten Island. So he goes, I think, to the country, to Rabbi Feinstein. Maybe he was a member of the camp of the yeshiva, and they had a camp upstate, Rav Moshe Feinstein. And at that time, the camp had an issue with all the nets, all these little things, these little mosquitoes or whatever it is. And he said, Rabbi Weiss said a fascinating thing. He had his drink, and the rabbi, Moshe Feinstein, has drink. Moshe Meir Weiss, Moshe Feinstein, right? And all the gnats were going to Moshe Meir Weiss. He's a big rabbi, by the way. Adam, he's a big rabbi today. Right? He was going by Rabbi Weiss's cup. And none of them were going to Moshe Feinstein's cup. Like these bugs, these gnats are forbidden to eat. Right? And you can't, and he saw this phenomenon. What happened that these gnats were not coming to Moshe Feinstein's cup? What's the difference between me and him? The difference is that he's Moshe Feinstein and I'm a young boy. He was a young man at the time, Rabbi Weiss. Maybe he was 18, I don't know, whatever he was, 20. And he observed this phenomenon that in a certain sense, which is related to what our Gemara is saying, Hashem will protect the tzaddik that he won't eat anything that's not kosher. So he already saw that protection happening for the fact they don't even come close to his cup. Aaron, what do you say to that? Is that a fact? I think it's a very interesting story. Adam, what do you say? That's a real protection. I presume there's many stories, about tzaddikim like this, but this is a modern day story that Rabbi Weiss, I will tell you, once I mentioned Moshe Meir Weiss, he has many books for him that he published. If you want to look him up, he has nice books on Birkat HaMazon, other things. He has many, he's on the web. He has a lot of, you might want to look into, he's a very good speaker. Okay, good morning, Emmanuel. So let's take a look on the Gemara now on 12b3 on the bottom of the first column. Shamash bodek kosot tani chadath. The Mishnah stated that you cannot read la'or haneh. You can't read on Shabbat to the light of an oil lamp. on Shabbat. Now the Chafetz Chaim is lenient regarding our wax candles, that you could read by the wax candles. It's not such a big issue of maybe you're going to move the candle on Shabbat, and like you have the issue by the oil concern, that because the way an oil lantern is, that maybe it's going to get dim and you're going to move the oil, or maybe the oil close to the wick. You don't really have such a concern like that by a wax candle. Technically, if you have a wax candle burning on Shabbat and you want to read near a wax candle, you should be able to read by a wax candle. Avadi Yosef, sometime, he one time he wrote this, so this might be a problem by wax candle. Sometimes he wrote, maybe then later on it seems like he came out that's not such a problem, not a problem by the wax candle. But the Chafetz Chaim, I was told that it's not a problem by the wax candle. Okay, so which most of us have using wax candles today for Shabbat. So comes the Gemara and says the following: Tanichada shamash. If you are a shamash, if you take care of the synagogue, or you are serving someone, you take care of somebody, you're serving. Your bodek kosot ukorot laohaner. You're allowed to examine the cups, the plates. You want to make sure, are these clean? You're serving for the shul, for the synagogue. You want to make sure that it's sanitary, it's nice and clean. But how you can't, let's say you're not sure, was it cleaned properly, not cleaned properly, and there's a light of a candle, not a candle, light of a lantern, of an oil lamp. Can I use that light of the oil lamp to check the cleanliness of these dishes, of these cups? So one opinion, one bright that says, I'm allowed to. We're not concerned that you're going to go ahead and move it. And one says lo yivdo, one says I cannot. I'm not allowed to go ahead and use the light of the oil lantern to check to see the cleanliness of the goblets that I want to use, or the plates I want to use. So how do we explain it? It seems contradictory. Why does one place say you could and one place say you can't? So the Gemara says the cases are different, Mr. Haber. The case is different. You like to say the law many times is different. Lo kasha. Kam b'shamash kavua, kam b'shamash eina kavua. Morning. So one is talking about, are you the regular shamash? Are you the regular gabbai? For instance, if we want to use Haron Shochet as an example, Haron is the regular gabbai. But let's say if Haron will be on vacation, Haron's away, and there's someone who is taking over temporarily, temporary substitute. So the permanent gabbai is much more concerned. This is how Rashi learns. If let's say you work for somebody, your job is to serve this person, right? You're working for the government, the rabbi. You're working for whoever you're working for, or you're working for the owner of the house, and that's your job to serve. And you're the regular employee of the house. So you're going to be very concerned that because this is your regular job, your job depends on the type of duty that you do. This is your permanent job. You're going to be more careful and be concerned that if you find anything is going to be found dirty on the utensils, you're going to be really look bad, as you're the employee here and you're really not doing a good job. So we're concerned you're going to move the oil lantern in order to have a good light to be able to check the utensils very well. However, if you're just a substitute, there's not so much on the line because you're only a substitute, you're only temporary. So then you're not as meticulous in checking as much. And therefore whatever the general light that will be, even if it gets dimmer, we're not worried that you're going to go ahead and actually need and require more light, that you're going to move the lantern. And therefore, Mr. Haber, you want to sit on the chair? Or that's good. You good? Therefore, if it's shamash ain't a kavua, if you're not a set shamash, we're not so concerned. And therefore, that person could move not could move, he's not allowed to move on Shabbat, could check the utensils by that lamp of light of the lantern, but there's less of a concern that he's going to come to move it. However, there are other Rishonim, there are other rabbis that understand the Gemara the opposite. That the guy who's not as expertise is going to need to have more light. And maybe he's going to be more worried about the guy who's a substitute that might move, that might move the oil lamp if he's checking the utensils. In contrast to the guy who's the professional, he's able to most probably do it without more light. And therefore, even we're not concerned that the professional is going to come to move. So we have different understandings how to understand the Gemara. Okay. The Ibayat Ema, if you want the Gemara suggests another answer, another approach. Havaha v'shamish kavua. Both cases, the guy, the shamash, the gabai, is set, is the regular one. It's not that one case is, the cases are different. They're both they're both the regular shamash, the regular gabai. Kasha, but you can't, but there's no question, why not? But here the question is, what is the type of fuel that you're using for this lantern? The mishcha, the brighter that forbids the checking of the goblets, of the cups, and the plates, is talking about a lantern using oil as its fuel. Oil doesn't have a bad smell. Since it doesn't have a bad smell, it's normal. It's more common. You come to move it. However, the nafta. But if it's a different type of fuel, which is the nafta fuel, and there's a type of fuel that has a bad odor. So because it has a bad odor, you're not going to come close to going ahead and moving it. So therefore, we're not worried. Here, the case is different, not by the people, but the case is different by the type of fuel that's being used to light this fire, this light going. And therefore, if it's not such a good fuel, or the fuel is a bad smell, you don't get too close. You have to be afraid you're going to come too close to go ahead and move it. Ibayalon. Now the Gemara asked the question, the Bnei Yeshiva, the people in the Yeshiva asked the following question, Shama she'ena kavua. If you have a shamash, and he is not kavua, he is a gabai, let's say he's serving you, but he's the substitute. Now, what did we say about the substitute? In the first answer we said, according to Rashi, we'll go with Rashi. Good morning, Ralph. The first answer we said that if you are a substitute, you don't need as much, you're not as meticulous as the regular employee. And therefore, the substitute has a right to go ahead and check the goblets at the light of the lantern, because he's not going to move it. But now the Gemara says, but Gemara is asking the question according to the second approach. The second approach did not tell us any distinction between a permanent gabai or a non-permanent gabai. The second approach just said it depends on the fuel. Depending on the fuel is, if it's not such a good smelling fuel, then it would be not a problem. So now we want to know, if you have good fuel, which we said in the second approach, we said good fuel, we said is a problem because you're going to move it. But what about if it's good fuel and you're not a regular gabbai? And you're not a regular gabbai. So now Gemara wants to know, what do we say with good fuel when you're not a regular gabbai? Would we say that since it doesn't have a bad odor, you might come to move it? Do we say by the fact that you're not a regular gabbai, so the fact you're not a regular gabbai, maybe we should have less of a concern that you're going to come to move it. So that's because you might not be as meticulous because it's not, your job is not on the line. It's only a temporary type of job. Iboilu, or a permanent job is not on the line. Shamash ena kavua b'damashcha mai. What is the law if he's a shamash, if he's a servant that's not set? So look at the Rashi. So Rashi says, Shamash ena kavua b'damashcha mai. You have the Rashi on the left side? Aaron, see Rashi? Shamash, Rashi says, Kivon she'ena kavua. Since he's not a set gabbai, he doesn't move it even during the weekdays. Therefore, he'll come Shabbat mutar. Therefore, on Shabbat it should be mutar. If during the weekdays you don't move the lantern, so on Shabbat you're not going to move it either. You should be able to go ahead and check the items at that. Check your cups and the plates at that light. Or Dilma b'damashcha, since it's oil. Since it's not disgusting, it's very clean. The smell, no smell. So therefore, the way is that maybe you would move it. Maybe you would move it during the weekdays, and therefore it would be a problem on Shabbat. So that is the question of the Gemara regarding this gabbai, this shamash, which is not the regular, but it comes to oil. So the Gemara says, Omar Rav. The Rav says, halacha. The law is that you're allowed, if you're not a permanent gabbai, you could go ahead and check the cups, the goblets, the plates at the light of the oil. But here's a fascinating thing we have in the Gemara. It's called ein morika. You don't publicize. There are certain halachot, Mr. Haver, you hear that? There's certain laws that we don't publicize. Why don't you publicize it? Because Rashi says they shouldn't become lax and make light of the law. What does that mean? If you start telling people that if you are a gabbai, you are helping serve the shul, or you're helping serve, you work for somebody, and if you tell the people that, you know what, if you're not the regular gabbai, you could go ahead and you could take the oil of while near an oil lamp on Shabbat, you could check the cups and you could check the plates, how clean they are. You know what people will say? The same way the gabbai who is not the permanent shamash does that on Shabbat, checks that there. The regular gabbai could do it too. They're not going to make that distinction, and therefore, and the regular gabbai, we're afraid, because he's going to want, Haron's going to want to make it perfect, that everything should be perfect in the shul. You're the regular gabbai, everything is top of the line, and now, if you're going to look at check the cups and check the plates to see, there was no plastic plates back then, by the way. Nothing was plastic. Nothing was disposable. Everything was it used in that? Was it not used? Is it clean? Is it not clean? Ever see you want to look at a cup? Is it a clean cup or not a clean cup? So you might going to cook. Is it a clean cup? And if you're going to use the light of the oil lamp, and if the light of the oil is not giving so much light, he might tilt it on Shabbat. Shlomo, you hear what might happen? He might tilt. That's a big sin on Shabbat, to tilt an oil lamp, moving the oil closer to the wick. That's called making a fire. It's called like making a fire. Making a fire. So therefore, don't publicize this law. We find such a concept also. Let's say sometimes we find a town that the people aren't so God-fearing. If you give them a certain leniency, a certain halakha, they come to take it the next step. You know what I mean? They don't realize, they don't, and they come. So sometimes you got to not publicize certain laws. Not everything is for public consumption, so to speak, in life, right? Not everything, because, sometimes you see with young children, such a concept, right? If you allow them certain things, where's the way going next? Yes, we have obligation to correct people to 100%. Here the question. I mean, giving, you're very good. Giving rebuke, the midst of giving rebuke. Musar, in a proper fashion. Do it in the right way, of course, yes. Because here we're talking about if you publicize the halacha and something, people are going to make a mistake in the law as a result of the publication. Meaning, here the question is a certain law that allows a non-permanent gabbai, shamash, someone who works for a shul or works for you, if he's not a permanent, he's not the irregular, he could technically, there's a law that there's a leniency. When there's a leniency in law, Shlomo, and if you publicize a leniency, if people are going to take that leniency and take it to the next level where you shouldn't be lenient, that's where you don't publicize. Meaning, if, Ramosha Feinstein had a certain leniency in a certain case, and some people told Ramosha, and he got a lot of heat for his ruling, and some people told Ramosha to back off from his halachic ruling. He got, and Moshe said, I'm not backing off. This is halacha, and I'm telling the people. There, and Moshe Feinstein said an amazing thing. He says, the same way, it's a distortion of the Torah. If something is forbidden, if you say it's permitted, that's a distortion of the truth. When something's forbidden, it's permitted. So too, if something is permitted, and you say the law is that it's forbidden, it's also a distortion of the truth. And Ramosha says, and Ramosha was not concerned that people are going to take it to use it in a come to do real sin because of this leniency. But there is a concept that there might be some laws on the book, so to speak, that might be a certain leniency, but you got to know your crowd. You got to know who the people are, where the people are holding, and the feeling was that this particular law, if you're going to go ahead and publicize, people will come to be lax where you shouldn't be. You get what I'm saying? So in a certain sense, it's like a fence not to publicize the law. That's his opinion. Halacha ve'ein morin king. Now, Rav Yirmiyah, now the Gemara brings an interesting story. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba iklel lebei Rav Asi. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba came to the house. He visited one of the great rabbis of Asi on Shabbat. He paid a visit on Shabbat. Come Shamei, and Rav Yirmiyah had his own private servant, own private person, I don't know, servant, not a slave, someone, an attendee who served him, took care of his needs. And and there was a oil lamp, and his person that worked with him, that helped him, that attended to him, was checking the goblets or the plates at the light of this oil lamp on Shabbat. So now we just said, if you are a shamash of the rabbi, and if this is not your permanent, if you're not permanent, or let's say this case is you're somewhere else. Let's see how the Gemara unfolds. Amrullah debitu, the wife of the host, says to Rav Asi, Uma lo avid hachi. You Rav Asi, do not allow if you would have an attendee who is not permanent, you would not allow him to go ahead and check the cups and the plates at the light of a lantern, of a lamp on Shabbat. And this rabbi is allowing his attendee, who when you're not in and the fact that he's in someone else's house, you have less expectations of you. If this rabbi if he's in my house, of the one who he's serving, that's more expectations of you. But when you're out of my house, you're somewhere else, so you like the not the permanent gabbai. in such a situation, and yet he's looking at the lamp. And you said that you don't allow such a thing. So what's going on over here? So Amalek, so he said, Amalek Shifke, leave him alone. Why? Karabe Sirele. He holds like Rabbi Yirmiyah. Yes, because there's two opinions in the Gemara. We skipped one. The Gemara said the first opinion was that you don't publicize this leniency. But there's a second opinion, Rabbi Yirmiyah Ba'aba Amar, halacha or can you do publicize this leniency? So we have an argument, Shlomo, if you actually publicize this particular leniency or not. And one rabbi says you do publicize, one rabbi says you don't publicize it. So he says back, so how is this guy doing this in the house when he's not, when you're someone else's house, you're not considered like a permanent man. You're not the real, this is not your place. You're not considered the real gabai, the real shamash, and he's looking at the light of the oil. So, which the wife, the wife is learned in halacha. How do you like that? The wife is learning halacha most probably because if she ever went with her husband to someone else's house, and if she would be examining the cups or the plates, she knew the law not to look at the light of a lantern, because that's what her husband told her. You don't do it. And so Amallah, so the rabbi says, Shifke, leave this guy alone. Don't say anything. Why not? Kerabe Sriulei. He holds this gabai, this shamash, this attendee holds like his master, his employer, his rabbi, and his rabbi held, Rabbi Yirmiyah said that you're allowed to publicize this law. That if you're not a permanent gabai, we're not concerned, you're able to go ahead and check the goblets and the plates at the light of the oil lantern on Shabbat. Therefore, she said, leave it, don't, nothing, you don't have to say anything. Now, what was that? That's what. Therefore, shifkei. So shifkei means I let him do it. That's why I'm not saying anything to him, because he holds, or shifkei, leave him alone. Don't say anything. Okay. But what do we see also from this wife? What we see that if he's doing something wrong, she wanted to stop him. She wanted to do something. No, if I'm supposed to stop him, if he's doing something wrong, we can't just let the person do something wrong on Shabbat. We have to say something. The Emet, yes.
Is this because they're afraid of moving the lamp? Is that what it's all about?
Exactly. That's the question. Is there enough concern to move this lamp, this oil lamp on Shabbat? Should we make this gezerah, this protection, this fence, that you shouldn't do this activity of check if you're not a regular gabai, not a regular attendee, could you go ahead and are you afraid that you might come to move the lamp on Shabbat? Now, a person, by the way, should know for themselves. Let's take a little bit practical application of this Gemara. Today in the bathrooms, it's very common people open lights, close lights. You go into a bathroom, you open it. So for some people, it's important to put there's certain called light protectors. And the light protector is there that you can't touch the switch on Shabbat. So any time, if a person if you think that you're not always on top of your game, if you think there's a possibility you might ever forget, you might open a light on Shabbat or close. I mean, most of the time it's presumed it's close a light, or best thing is before Shabbat, especially people have children or you have guests in the house, you don't know their level of observance, how on top of the game they are. You should have light protectors or some certain things. Very good to have that to make sure that people don't come to forget. If it ever happens to you that you ever forget, so you must do it. Whether until you buy the light protector, take a little piece of Scotch tape and put it on the thing and hold something to make sure that. I know in NYU in the college they taped up the light, but there are people there that put on lights on Shabbat. So the whole week they keep the light on in one of the buildings there. It's on. They're wasting electricity the whole week, but it's not called wasting electricity. They're keeping on the whole week, but they're afraid they're not going to remember before Shabbat to tape it, and people are opening lights on Shabbat. But everybody has to know their situation, and therefore they should do proper accommodations to make sure they don't come to violate the Shabbat. But I think that's a very good thing to have everyone. I recommend everyone in their house to get light protectors, protect the lights, because you don't know who comes to your house that might just, they close off the bathroom light, or they put on the bathroom light. Now you're stuck and you're in trouble. Okay? Or you yourself, chas v'shalom, in case you get up in the middle of the night, you might forget. But like I always tell people, do you ever forget your name? How do you forget that? How do you forget a Shabbat? The answer is we're humans and we're not holding always where we need to be holding in life. Okay, have a great day. Ralph, Asaf, all the best. We welcome Emmanuel.
See you tomorrow.
Yes, looking forward.
Bye-bye.
Take it, bye-bye.